The Star Wars fandom to this day remains divided and really separated after what happened to the sequel trilogy's end, and especially let's not forget about the Book of Boba Fett show as well as the Kenobi series that was all mishandled by Kathleen Kennedy and really intervening with a lot of aspects of the creative development of those shows. This is Mike Zero. Make sure to subscribe if you are new to the channel for future Star Wars updates. Also, by the way guys, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support. It is greatly appreciated. Now, one thing that Disney and Lucasfilm are actively working on is exactly how they are about to really embrace this new roadmap. How they're really going to be able to give fans a new take on the Star Wars universe and where it's all heading. Now, we already know that FAVREAU and FILONI are working day in and day out to really make sure that not only will Legends come back in all its glory, but that also a lot of new material that we have never seen before is going to really pay respect to the fandom by really showing that John and Dave have a creative mind. Now, there are a couple of projects that we're going to be talking about, but one of which really stands out the most that could very well make or break the franchise if not done correctly, and I will always go on to say that this is probably the most risky and the most, the biggest show out there, I should say, that could very well have a big consequence if not handled correctly. So we're going to be tapping into a lot of that right now and exactly what's going on over at Lucasfilm for a new Star Wars TV series codenamed Blue Link. Now, we talked about this briefly before in the past and exactly what it entailed. However, there are a lot of more recent developments about this show that they aim to get out by 2025. So let's dive right into this. So, of course, with Disney currently planning out multiple Star Wars shows for Disney Plus, they are also developing other projects that they believe will recapture the love of the original trilogy, fans, and more. Now, one major project that Disney is developing on is a Star Wars show codenamed, like I say, Blue Link. The series is set to take place in between A New Hope and Empire, as well as in between Empire and Return of the Jedi, that will introduce a handful of new characters and the return of some fan favorites, such as Luke Skywalker as well. Now, this project is set to feature recreations of famous scenes from the originals that will be remade for the fans to get a different perspective on things. This will include remaking the trench run on the first Death Star, of course in modern form, as well as the Battle of Andor. Disney has a full-scale plan to modernize those two famous battles in the Star Wars franchise for Blue Link that is going to appear just like Rogue One's style. As of now, Disney is getting creator Tony Gilroy, who handled Star Wars Andor, to become a big part of this project, along with FAVREAU and FILONI to become co-writers for this new show. So let me just stop here for a second. Now, we talked about this before in the past, and exactly what it means for Star Wars as a whole, and what could possibly go wrong. Now, obviously, if you don't handle the recreations of these two scenes carefully, a lot can go wrong. In fact, it could really break the franchise if you mess around with the original trilogy. Now, do I think that this needs to be recreated? Do I think that Endor and Yavin battles need to be recreated and modernized? Not necessarily, but I think it's going to be a very entertaining thing to watch if it's handled properly, and the fact that they are getting Tony Gilroy on board of this. I think a lot of fans are going to have faith in this because, let's face it, Tony Gilroy is a guy that loves high-budget projects, such as Andor, very high-budget show. That's exactly why it looks very cinematic, very movie-like. That's what they want to do with Project Blue Link, which, by the way, we already talked about this briefly, but it is going to heavily feature ships and space battles and on-foot combat, and it's basically what Rogue Squadron was supposed to be in a different era, except this portion, it's going to be based in two different time pieces, if you want to say that. It's going to be based in between Empire and Return of the Jedi, as well as in between A New Hope and Empire, giving us, of course, multiple cameos of fan-favorite characters like Luke again, to show us a different side of that character. So, the biggest thing of all about this that I think a lot of fans are going to have issues with is, of course, will this interfere with the canon? Well, that's one thing that they have to pay attention to, right? They gotta make sure that, obviously, if they're doing the recreation of the Battle of Yavin, Luke has to be there in his X-Wing. He has to be. You can't X that out. You can't get rid of that. Another example, if you're doing the Battle of Yavin recreation in a modernized format, you can't get rid of Lando, and of course, everyone else involved in that battle, right? Even Nine Numb, you cannot get rid of him. So, on the next thing here, alright, now, Blue Link is said to actually primarily be about on-foot combat and space combat that will be the main focus of the show. Disney is calling it a one-of-a-kind show, not just for Star Wars, but for all shows in existence, and could even create a new genre, so to speak. George Lucas is said to have endorsed the plans for the series, and will be handling the recreations of the Battle of Endor and Yavin. The plan is to also showcase a version of Luke as a cameo that is set in between Empire and Return, showing fans his transition to becoming a Jedi Knight. Now, the good news about this, George endorsed this entire show, and basically he's approving everything that's happening. He's going to actually oversee what's going on with the recreation of Endor and Yavin, and he's also going to be involved in the creative process. That really gives me a lot of faith that this could very well mark itself down as a superb recreation. Now, the style that they're aiming for is to actually give it a style of that of the Battle of Scarif. Now, what I mean by that is the way it's shot, the kind of angles that they chose, the type of dialogue exchanged, the overall cinematography type. That's what they're aiming for with these modern takes on the Battle of Yavin and Battle of Endor. And honestly, guys, I'm excited. I'm very excited. I love the original trilogies as much as anybody. You know, the original trilogy films, I should say, as much as anybody. But these two movies, I think, holding the biggest battles in the Star Wars franchise, getting a modernized take, it's going to be fun to watch, especially with Tony Gilroy creating it and George Lucas creating aspects of it. I have a lot of faith. I think it's going to work. And by all means, I'm not here sitting and saying that the originals deserve to be recreated or anything like that. But the main reason why they are doing this is that they want to show the consequences of both Death Star explosions. If you guys have actually seen the Battlefront 2, I believe it was, cinematics, you do realize that after the Death Star 2 explodes, it actually created wildfires on Endor, believe it or not, on the Forest Moon. Wildfires, and the Ewoks were retreating from their villages, so we're going to see stuff like that, the consequences of the destruction of these Death Stars. That's the main purpose. They're not just doing this to do this, that's why they are doing this, to show us a different side of the story. What really happened after the Death Star explosion, right? That's what they want to show. And sure, we didn't really see that at the end of the Return of the Jedi, we didn't see those wildfires. But that is canon. It is in Battlefront 2, I believe it was, and they are going to do that in live action. So overall, guys, drop a comment below. Let me know what you guys have to say about all of this below in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.
From night to moon, we hear them moans again.